Today, for episode 2 of our The Enemy of the World classic Doctor Who retrospective, I'll be reading out the behind the scenes information, or at least about as much of it until maybe the 4 to 5 minute mark, and then just so we don't incur any copyright wrath, I'll pause it, and then we'll continue it in episode 3 if that is the case. Let's go. The end of this story leads into the beginning of the Web of Fear. By the way, this is all sourced from the TARDIS data core for Doctor Who Fan Wiki. If you have been viewing these retrospectives before, you're probably aware of that. Just in case you are a new viewer, that's the go here. Patrick Troughton is credited as Doctor Who/Salamander for episodes 2 to 6. He also appears as Salamander in a 35mm black and white film sequence in episode 1, but is credited only as Doctor Who. Radio Times credits Patrick Troughton as Doctor Who and Salamander for episodes 2 to 6, while the actual cast lists, which credit the characters in order of appearance, bill Patrick Troughton only as Doctor Who for episodes 1 and 6, and as both Doctor Who and Salamander, separate billings for episodes 2 to 5. It's very specific, possibly needless information trivia here. This style of credit would be repeated 40 years later in Human Nature, in which David Tennant was credited as the Doctor/Smith. This marks the second time that a doppelganger of the Doctor has been featured, giving the lead actor a dual role, following William Hartnell's, of course, double performance as the first Doctor and the Aberdavan boys in The Massacre. There was also the Doctor clone in Dalek's Master Plan. Patrick Troughton's son David appears as an uncredited guard in episodes 5 and 6. Neither Fraser Hines nor Deborah Watling appear in episode 4, as they were both on holiday during the week it was recorded. Fraser Hines' cousin Ian plays a guard. Barry Lett's nephew is the director of this episode, and he became quite an influential figure in the Doctor Who production subsequently. Anyway, his nephew Andrew Staines stepped in to replace another actor as the Sergeant to Bennick. This is the final story, overseen by producer Innes Lloyd. It's handed over to Peter Bryant, I believe, afterward. This story marked the first use of 625-line PAL videotape in Doctor Who, as opposed to the old 405-line standard. For many years, incorrect production paperwork led to the belief that this began with episode 3, until analysis of the recovered episodes from Nigeria found otherwise. Stock footage of a volcano exploding was later reused in colour for the title cards of Inferno, and again in Time Monster. Similarly, the footage of an exploding helicopter sourced from Russia with Love would again be used for the Daemons. A black and white photograph of Mary Peach, Astrid, standing next to Astrid's helicopter accompanied the Radio Times program listing for episode 1, along with a synopsis bearing the title Who's Who, which reads as follows. Tonight's new adventure of Doctor Who finds the crew of the TARDIS landing on a beach and coming under fire from a hovercraft, only to be rescued by a helicopter piloted by a girl, Astrid, Mary Peach. She takes them to her leader, who explains that the Doctor is the exact double of a would-be world dictator. Into the fray goes the Doctor, or is it Salamander, or is it the Doctor pretending to be Salamander? That's the original published text. Radio Times, in certain regions for the week of transmission of episode 2, featured a small article entitled Who Sets the Fashion, which looked at future fashion as seen in Doctor Who and focused on the costumes worn by Mary Peach, Astrid and Bill Kerr, Giles Kent, which gave the year in which the story was set as 2018. Fun times. The Radio Times program listed for episode 3 was accompanied by a small black and white head and shoulders shot of Fraser Hines with the accompanying caption, Fraser Hines plays Jamie in The Enemy of the World. The third part of this Doctor Who adventure is at 5:25. It's the original published text. For the week of transmission of episode 5, Doctor Who featured in full colour for the first time on the front cover of Radio Times, cover dated the 20th to 26th of January 1968, a head and shoulders shot of Patrick Troughton as the Doctor examining a control panel, which is taken from the previous story, The Ice Warriors. This was used to introduce a 2-page colour behind-the-scenes article in the centre pages entitled The Monstrous World of Doctor Who, written by Gay Search, which opened with the following introductory paragraph, Daleks, Cybermen, Yetis, Ice Warriors, familiar monsters guaranteed to chill the blood of anyone over the age of 10. But where do they come from? Who dreams them up? How are they made? How do they work? We send Gay Search to find out. In addition to the origins of the aforementioned monsters, the article not only looked at the creation of the seaweed monster from the forthcoming story, Fury from the Deep, but also looked at the roles of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop and the BBC's Visual Effects Department in bringing the Doctor's enemies to life, and featured a brief interview with the head of the BBC's Visual Effects Department, Jack Kine. Okay, we're about 5 minutes now, so we'll close it here. Thanks again, my good and dear friends. We'll continue this in episode 3 of the retrospective for The Enemy of the World.